She walked into that cafe with exactly $5 to her name. $5, that was all that stood between Emily and complete broke, and she was about to spend it on a coffee for a blind date who might not even show up. This is the story of a nurse who worked double shifts just to keep the lights on, who said yes to one blind date that changed everything, but not in the way you think. Because the man sitting across from her that day wasn't just another guy from a dating app. He owned the entire place. And what happened next will make you rethink everything you know about first impressions. Emily Carter was 28 years old and exhausted. Not the kind of tired you feel after a long day. The kind that seeps into your bones after months of working back-to-back shifts at the hospital. She was a pediatric nurse, which meant she spent her days making kids smile through their pain while barely managing to smile through her own. Her apartment was tiny. Her car made a weird sound every time she turned left. And her bank account, let's just say it was crying for help. But Emily wasn't the type to complain. She'd grown up with a single mom who taught her that hard work beats luck every time. So she worked, and worked, and worked some more. Until one day, her best friend Sarah practically forced her to download a dating app. Sarah said Emily needed to have some fun for once in her life. Emily said she needed to pay rent. But Sarah won, like she always did. That's how Emily matched with a guy named Daniel. His profile was simple. No shirtless mirror selfies. No fish. Just a nice smile and a bio that said he loved coffee and good conversations. They texted for a week, and he seemed normal, sweet. Even so when he suggested meeting at this cafe downtown called the Brewhaven, Emily said yes, even though her wallet was practically empty. Even though she probably should have been picking up another shift instead. On the morning of the date, Emily checked her bank account. $12.37. That's what she had until her next paycheck in 3 days. She needed $7 for gas to get to work tomorrow. That left her with $5 and some change. Enough for one coffee. Maybe. She put on her best dress, which was really just a blue shirt dress she'd owned for 4 years, and drove to the cafe with her fingers crossed that her car wouldn't break down. The Brewhaven was beautiful. The kind of place with exposed brick walls and plants hanging from the ceiling, and the smell of fresh coffee that makes you feel like everything might actually be okay. Emily had never been there before. It was way too expensive for someone like her, but Daniel had picked it. So she walked in trying to look like she belonged. She spotted him immediately, sitting at a corner table, dark hair, kind eyes, the same smile from his pictures. He waved at her, and she waved back, her heart doing that nervous flutter thing. But as she walked toward him, something weird happened. The barista behind the counter stood up straighter. A waiter passing by nodded at Daniel with this look of respect, and the woman at the table next to his whispered something to a friend. While glancing his way, Emily brushed it off. Maybe he was a regular. She sat down, and they started talking. And honestly, it was going great. Daniel was funny. He asked about her work and actually listened when she talked. About the kids at the hospital, he didn't check his phone once. He seemed genuinely interested in her life. For the first time in months, Emily felt like maybe Sarah was right. Maybe she did deserve to have a little fun. Then the waiter came over, a young guy with an apron and a nervous smile. He asked what they wanted to order, looking mostly at Daniel. Emily glanced at the menu, and her stomach dropped. The cheapest coffee was $6.50. She had $5 in change. She did the math in her head 3 times, hoping it would somehow work out differently. It didn't. Daniel ordered an espresso. The waiter looked at Emily. She felt her face get hot. She could feel the $5 bill in her pocket, practically burning a hole through the fabric. This was humiliating. But she wasn't going to sit there and order nothing. So she asked for a regular black coffee, the cheapest thing she could find, and prayed it was under $5. $4.75. The waiter said it out loud, and Emily almost cried with relief. She pulled out her crumpled $5 bill and handed it over like it was nothing, like she wasn't literally giving away the last money she had to her name. The waiter took it, brought back her 25 cents in change, and Emily held on to that quarter like it was a winning lottery ticket. Daniel didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't say anything. They kept talking. He told her about his love for coffee, how he'd been obsessed with it since college. He talked about running a business and how stressful it could be, but how rewarding it felt when things worked out. Emily talked about her patients, about the 7-year-old boy who'd beaten leukemia last month, and how she cried happy tears in the supply closet afterward. An hour passed, then another. The coffee was long gone, but they were still talking, still laughing. Emily forgot about her empty wallet. She forgot about her broken car and her tiny apartment, and the double shift she had tomorrow. For 2 hours, she was just a girl on a date with a nice guy, and it felt good. Then Daniel did something unexpected. He excused himself to use the restroom. And that's when everything clicked into place. The moment he stood up, the same waiter from earlier rushed over, not to their table, to the counter, where he started talking in hushed tones with the barista. Emily couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw the barista glance at Daniel's back, then at her, then nod, like she understood something important. When Daniel came back, he had this look on his face, not quite a smile, something softer. He sat down and said something that made Emily's world tilt. He said, "I have a confession to make. I own this place. The Brewhaven. It's mine. I opened it 3 years ago." Emily just stared at him. She thought about the $5, the last $5 she had, that she'd spent in his cafe, on his coffee, while he sat there across from her, probably a millionaire, watching her count out change. The embarrassment hit her like a truck. Her eyes got hot and she looked down at the table because she didn't want him to see her cry. But Daniel kept talking. He said he didn't tell her because he wanted her to see him as just Daniel, not the CEO, not the owner, just a guy who loved coffee and wanted to meet someone real. He said most of the women he'd met through the app changed when they found out about the cafe. They got different. Fake. But Emily hadn't cheated, been herself the whole time, honest and kind and real. Then he said something that broke her. He said one of his employees had quietly told him that she'd paid with her last $5, that the waiter had seen her checking and rechecking the menu prices. And Daniel wanted her to know that he wasn't judging her. He was amazed by her, because she'd shown up anyway. She'd spent money she clearly needed on a date with a stranger, on a chance at connection, and that took guts. Emily finally looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying anymore. She asked him why he was telling her this. Why now? And Daniel smiled that same kind smile from his profile pictures and said, "Because I want to buy you dinner, a real dinner. Not because you need it, but because I want to spend more time with you, and I want you to know that you don't have to pretend with me. Ever." They stayed at that cafe for 4 more hours. Daniel had the kitchen make them food, even though it was past closing time. They talked about everything, their families, their dreams, the things that scared them. And when Emily finally left that night, she didn't just leave with a full stomach. She left with something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Daniel paid her car insurance the next week. Emily tried to refuse, but he said it wasn't charity. It was investment in someone who spent her life taking care of others and deserved someone to take care of her for once. 6 months later, they were dating officially. A year after that, Daniel proposed in that same corner booth where they'd first sat. But here's the thing. Emily never stopped being a nurse. And Daniel never stopped being amazed by her, because it was never about the money. It was about showing up, being real, spending your last $5 on a chance at something more. That's what love looks like sometimes. Not perfect, not easy, just real. If this story hit you the way it hit me, you need to see what happens next in the video on your screen right now.